ghost in my house, a sentiment that jockey Tony McCoy can empathise with. It seems he's having a bit of paranormal bother at his home in Berkshire. His family think the house is haunted, and he feels he has no choice but to move them all out. It's an extraordinary story. Is there anything else he could do? Well, Andy Matthews is a psychic investigator. Evening, Andy.
Good evening, Seamus. How are you?
Are you a ghostbuster?
No. That's a very, very mediumistic term. Excuse the pun. No, I'm a psychic investigator, which means I work on both sides. I work on the scientific and on the mediumistic, because you have to cover both particular areas.
What's the mediumistic?
Well, mediumistic is the mediumistic side. That's the spiritual aspects of investigating this type of phenomena. Because generally, as you and I know, you can't see ghosts. You can only speak to witnesses and gather the information from what they've apparently seen, heard or felt, and then try and decipher scientifically with the instruments we've got whether there is actually anything within the property. And then we also bring in, myself, I also bring in a medium sometimes to, if all else fails, to try and establish if there's anything spiritual going on in there, if indeed that there is a ghost that inhabits the building.
How can it be anything to do with science when you can't see anything, you can't smell anything?
There's certain ways you can test. What I usually do is, there's when you go into a potentially haunted house, there's a lot of unparanormal reasons for a haunting. It could be a natural case of over-imagination, every time the curtains blow, especially in weather like this, or the door creaks, or the cat goes out the cat flap. It could be something extremely simple. And people who live close by to motorways or airports can be prone to infrasound, which is a low-level vibration which can cause all manner of hallucinations. But once you've ruled all these logical causes out, you're left with a probable haunting, which is worthy of investigating further. So, it's generally ruling out the scientific, the logic first, before you look at the mediumistic and the paranormal side of it.
Yeah, but once you look at the science of it and you establish there's nothing scientific to explain it, why should there be anything to worry about? Why should there be any consideration of anything else?
Because when you're dealing with hauntings like this, you have to go by witness accounts unless you're lucky enough to experience something yourself.
And he clearly has a problem, and his family has a problem.
It does. From what I've read about the particular case, it's supposed to be, he believes it to be a ghost of a person that had a duel there, which is a very common cause of a haunting. For example, when somebody dies suddenly, sometimes they don't realise they've actually died. They refuse to leave the life that they lived, and for some reason which goes beyond all scientific reason, somehow their memories and their energy of when they were alive is somehow entombed within the building or the place.
It's an old soldier, a ghost of an old soldier, according to local lore, yeah.
Mm. This is it.
He'd been shot in the house.
He'd been shot. This is it. When you're shot, if you're killed by that single shot, you die suddenly. There's many different reasons for hauntings, and that is an actual textbook case, because most of the hauntings that I've come across, when you look into the history, which is what I do, you're obviously going to look at all the historical elements that are associated with the case. Generally, you'll find something that's happened in the property or around the property, which can sometimes cause some kind of haunting.
So what can he do, Andy?
Well, the thing is, it's very easy to get scared. I've been doing this a long time, and when things like this happen, because we don't really know what we're dealing with, when these kind of things happen. As I said, it could be something. It could be a case of over-imagination, or then again, it couldn't. It could be something that's quite real. So it's very important, really, to try and not get scared. Try and look at what is actually going on there. And, maybe bring in some paranormal investigators. I'm not talking about these, I'm talking about people that know what they're doing, some very scientific people that can come in there, run some tests. And generally you'll find, when I do investigations like this, you will find something. There is something. You will find anomalies within your equipment, in your recordings, that are unexplainable. But the important thing to remember is when you're investigating somebody's house, when you leave, they've got to still live there. So You've got to go in really very tentatively and try and act as some kind of counsellor as well, because there's a lot of logical explanations, but also there's a lot of illogical explanations. But the important thing is to try and establish what is going on there and try and understand it rather than fear it.
Andy Matthews, thank you very much.